Sometimes the strength you carry isn't yours. It's borrowed from those who came before you. The truth is, my ancestors left me more than DNA. They left me a survival manual wrapped in their stories, traditions, and sacrifices. Today, I want to share how their whispers through history taught me the art of resilience when life felt impossible. My grandmother, my great grandmother, told me stories about her mother and father and their parents who lived through war and famine and political upheaval. And she said that they did everything they could to survive for their families. Um, and so listening to her tell me those stories showed me what resilience really looked like. Her life taught me that resilience isn't always loud. Sometimes it's simply getting up the next day when the world tries to keep you down. I remember my grandfather telling me about how his family grew up in poverty. My grandfather had to drop out of school because he had 12 siblings. He was the oldest of 12. And so he could not read. But he refused to let those circumstances define him. And my grandfather ended up starting 3 successful businesses, 3 restaurants, and he couldn't read. But he was always the type of person that was always gonna do the impossible. Whatever you said that he couldn't do, he was gonna do it. And that's what he showed me. And that reminded me that resilience often begins with a single dream, a dream stubborn enough to survive scarcity. And that was my grandfather. He didn't let the fact that he couldn't read stop him from being an entrepreneur. And then there's the matriarch of the family, right? My great grandmother, she was the glue of the family during loss or hardship, keeping our traditions alive, raising kids, helping raising kids, protecting the family's dignity through storms of grief or poverty. That was my great grandmother, Martha. And I loved, we called her Mummy. Her name was Martha, but we called her Mummy. And I loved Mummy so much. She was the epitome of love. She was the strongest woman that I've ever met. Mummy grew up, she too had, I think, 12 siblings. She wasn't the oldest, but she was up there near the oldest. And Mummy taught me how to make food from scratch. And I remember being in the kitchen with her and I would say, well, Mummy, how much, what's the recipe? Like, how much milk am I supposed to put in? Or how many eggs am I supposed to put in? And she would laugh. She had the cutest laugh. And she would say, baby, she said, Mummy doesn't measure. She said, if you do it with love, it'll come out right every time. And when I tell you she didn't measure, she said, you got to feel it, baby. You got to feel it. And so she didn't measure, but when I tell you everything she cooked came out perfect and it was all homemade. She didn't use box cakes or anything like that. And one of the traditions that I loved about Mummy is that instead of saying the grace, which sometimes she would say the grace, and instead of saying the grace, like God is great and God is good, she would just sing it because she loved to sing. So she would sing, God is great and God is good. And so she would sing it, or she would require us to go around the table and say one thing that we were grateful for or one thing that we loved about each other. And on our birthdays, she would always say, come by the house. I got something for you. And she knew she had so many great grandchildren and grandchildren that she knew what each one of us liked. And so for me, it was her pound cake. I loved her pound cake. So I knew on my birthday, every July, I was going to get a pound cake and some homemade ice cream. And so she would call us over there. The other thing that I loved about Mummy is that she she had nicknames for all of us. As soon as she would see us, like as soon as our parents had us, like, and she would lay eyes on us, she would give us a new name. So, of course, you know, my name is Kimberly, but for mommy, my name was Pretty Face. And so whenever she saw me, she said, "Hey, Pretty Face," and that was my name. She named my brother Smiley because she said he came out smiling. And she named my mom Foxy because she said she was sassy. And so me and all of my cousins and all of my aunts and uncles, we have these nicknames that we've carried through life because of mommy. But I saw mommy and my grandmothers and my grandfathers live lives where they had traditions, where they expected us to come to their house on Sundays and eat Sunday dinner or stop by during the week. And that was what we did, and we loved to do it as children. Like, I loved being underneath them, to learn from them. You know, mommy is actually the first person who taught me about meditation. She never set me down and said, "Baby, this is what meditation is." But she would sneak away in her room. Like when I would spend the night at her house, she would sneak away in her room multiple times a day. And me being the nosy person that I am, at that age, I was, you know, in elementary school, middle school, high school. And I would sneak in her room, and I would go in her room, and she would be sitting in her favorite chair, quiet. But when I tell you, when every time I walked in her room, I could feel a presence. I could feel God's presence. God was there. And she would be so silent. And then at some moments, I'd be like, "Is she asleep? Are you asleep, mommy?" And then, you know, I would do that. And she didn't let that faze her. She wouldn't flinch. And then some cases, she would say, "Yes, God, yes." And then she would go back to being silent. And then, but she had cultivated that space. That was her space, her room in that chair. She had cultivated that space. And you could tell when you went in there that that space was cultivated for meditation and prayer. And that was where she had her me time. And so that is where I learned about the importance of getting time alone, getting that meditation before the day starts, or even at the end of the day, whatever works for you. But she taught me that resilience isn't just surviving, it's loving fiercely when the world feels loveless. And mommy was the epitome of love. She showed so many people love, like unconditionally, without conditions. And I am so grateful for her. You know, when I think about what they left me, I remember when I was going through my mental health. I had just gotten laid off. I had had 5 miscarriages before my daughter, and I was depressed. I was really, really depressed, and I felt like all hope was gone. Like I wanted to give up on life. I had lost my job. I went through church hurt. I went through all of this at the same time. And I took pills to try to end my life. And my husband walked in on me. Ironically, he had gotten off early that day, and he walked in on me. And so in that moment, you know, after like getting hugs from my husband and us crying on the floor together, I thought about my ancestors. I thought about them. And I said, wow, like if Lydia and Alice and Martha and Sam and Alexander can endure what they had to endure back then, surely I can hold on to this beautiful life that I was given. And life is messy at the moment, Kimberly, but you're gonna make it through. You're going to get through this. It's hard. And whatever you have to do, if you have to go to therapy, if you have to get medication for your depression, whatever it is you have to do, remember your ancestors who came before you, that you can stand on their backs and they can offer you strength in this moment. And so, their experiences offered me courage when I wanted to give up. And I feel like resilience is realizing you're never standing alone. Every ancestor who fought to survive is standing with you. And that's the God knows truth. Persistence over perfection. Resilience that echo today. They didn't wait for perfect conditions to act. Our ancestors did not wait for perfect conditions to act. It was faith in the unseen. They believed that better days were coming, even when nothing suggested that those better days were coming. They had community over isolation. Their survival, it wasn't solo. They leaned into and on each other. And I think that is what we have to do. We have to remember to lean into our community, whether it's a small community or a big community, but lean in that community, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Asking for help isn't weakness. It's the best thing that you can do for yourself, to create a better quality of life for yourself. But a lot of times pain and grief wants us, and anxiety wants us to be isolated. But I'm telling you that our ancestors, they had community over isolation, and they had legacy over loss. They lived knowing their sacrifices would outlive them. They knew that this next generation, myself and my daughter, and then the children that she'll have, they knew that their sacrifices would outlive them. And so here's my challenge for you. I want you to find one story about your ancestors. I want you to write it down and let it remind you that resilience runs in your blood, because you are someone's answered prayer, and someone down the line will one day call you their ancestor of resilience. So I want to hear from you in the comments. If you like this video, if this video inspired you in any way, leave me messages in the comments so we can talk about this. And if it inspired you, share the video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.